A coffee recipe is a stack of small decisions. These are the ones that truly, really matter to me. There's so many things that we have to think about, worry about when it comes to coffee, right? Water, temperature, grind size, the coffee, all this stuff, right? Sometimes they become rules. Sometimes they are just physics. But a lot of times it's part of the ritual that we play with coffee. Almost any recipe, right? But specifically with coffee. Because the situation, if you think about it, the actual process only lasts about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, depending on the coffee, depending on the brew method, depending on whatever we're trying to get out that coffee, especially when it comes to pour over, right? So let's just say 5 minutes. That's the max, right? But a lot of times, it's a lot more than that. We're thinking about it constantly. We're seeing what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. We're thinking about the coffee that we're actually going to be using. We're thinking about the day before, what worked, what didn't work, and all that good stuff. So here's my highly ranked, at least for now, coffee recipes, decisions that I think are important. You may think that too. Number one, not in particular order, but we'll call this S tier. I think I have 2 S tiers. The first one, water. I thought for the longest, water was just something, right? It was just something you had to use. Most things start with water. Beer starts with water. Fruit juice starts with water. Coconut water is water, right? Coffee is water, and a big percentage of it is. But we're not talking about water, right? But we are. And for the longest, I just used tap water or water that was filtered out from the refrigerator. I still have some amazing, fantastic cups of coffee. Don't get me wrong. That's not the point that I'm trying to make here. The point is that when you optimize, bring the best out of the water that you do have, the coffee's going to taste a lot better. It's like one less variable to actually worry about. Lately, for instance, for me, I've been using this in-between water, as I call it. It consists of an acidity profile and also a sweet profile. So I just essentially made them come together, and now we have one recipe. It's working out pretty well. No real issues. I think it lets the coffee highlight itself and all that good stuff. But once you figure out the water situation, you're going to be in a better place because it's one less thing for you to really worry about, think about, and all that stuff. If you want to go the package route, you don't want to figure out your whole water chemistry, you can use third wave water. The packages are kind of expensive, but here's a quick and easy hack. Instead of doing 1 gallon to the one package that it suggests, go ahead and do 1.5 gallons to one package. One, you'll get better range, and then you'll be able to drop that ppm, whatever it's called, ppm, from 170 to 160 all the way down to like 120. And if you want to put more water into it, you can dump it a little bit more. To me, the way it is at 1 gallon, it takes over too much. It could be a story for another day, but that's just my assessment on water and how water is very critical. It's important, but you don't have to go deep into the rabbit hole of trying to really figure it out. Once you do, it's one less thing to worry about. And it's literally one of the most important things besides the coffee in this whole coffee chain, right? Okay, number 2, S tier. The bloom. I'm an engineer, trained and all that stuff, work professionally and all that good stuff. I think I am a part-time scientist, mad scientist, so to speak, with this coffee thing. I analyze everything. I think about it all as much as I can. But I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to pretend to be. Sometimes I do hate, sometimes online people are always telling me that, or telling you that this is the scientific way of what's going on with this particular situation. Same thing with the bloom. Gassing, degassing, doing this, doing that, and all that good stuff. I don't know. I don't know what to be true, what not to be true. I have no clue. I'm not going to fight anybody about anything about that. If you want to geek out about science stuff that you probably barely understand or you've heard it from other people, go right ahead. That's just me. I just know that blooming a coffee helps. I know for at least 30 seconds, it does something magical to the coffee. Some people talk about cold bloom or hot bloom or whatever the hell it may be. I'll do those experiments for another day. But it does something. I really don't know what it does. It allows you to grind coarser. It gives your coffee some time to chill out, if you want to say that. I guess that's me going a little bit scientific, right? But the biggest thing really here is that it does something. So do it. It's really that simple. I don't have to understand everything about coffee, science, and life. If it works, it works. And I start to do it. Is there a place for one pour method? Yes. Is it a slightly different cup? It is. It's a different cup. No matter what, it's a different cup, right? So you're going to have to go a lot finer. You're going to have to go a lot slower. You're going to have to keep the bed a little bit lower. There's a lot more things to pay attention to. Can you make a juicy cup, a good cup with a one pour method? Yeah, you can. But something about that bloom, it's pretty cool. So that's why it's up there for me. Okay. We're going to go to A tier. Ratio matters. I kind of go back and forth with this one. It's critical. It's important. Kind of gives you an idea of what you're going to get yourself into. But lately, I've been thinking about ratios a little bit more differently. What I mean by that is that it's up to that coffee more than anything, right? It's up to that coffee to tell you if it likes it at this particular ratio. I was so gung-ho of just being a 1 to 15 guy. Strong enough, but not weak enough, right? But lately I've been having these coffees that are just playing different games. They don't care about my rules. And one thing that I've noticed with them in particular is that they really come alive at a 1 to 10 ratio. They're really tasty. They really say something. There's something to the point to where it's like, wow, this is exactly where this coffee wants to be. It's just not so much of a rule for me, but what I try to do a lot of times is that I'll try to push a lightly roasted coffee to 1 to 17, 1 to 18. It's not like that all the time. Sometimes it needs that 1 to 10. On the ZP6, it actually comes together. You can actually taste a little bit more of the elements. It just depends on the situation. So ratios matter because they kind of tell the picture of where you're going to go with the coffee. It paints the picture. However, I've been a little bit more loose with my ratios just because I guess I don't want to do math anymore. And I've been noticing as long as I get the grind size just right, or has a spectrum of where it just works most of the time, then the coffee's going to be tasty no matter what, from a 1 to 10. Actually, 1 to 10 is a little bit more under extracted, but as you keep adding more water to the exact same grind size, the coffee gets more extracted. And then from there, you can just pick whichever tastes better for you. So ratios matter because it kind of gives you a good indication of what you're actually going to be tasting. But do remember that that's very highly dependent on the actual coffee. what that coffee wants to be to your palate. And it's different for everybody. Okay. Reading drawdown. I've been drawdown. It's important, but it's not important. But it is important to me. Again, it's one of those things that's lately that's been trippy. These coffees don't care about your rules. I've talked about this a couple times. This Ethiopian white honey. I actually have it on my cupboard right now, on my board, workbench, whatever you want to call it, coffee bar, coffee lab. I actually have it right there right now, and it's, I kid you not, it's slow as hell. It used to trip me out. But now I just dive into the whole madness of it, trying to understand that particular coffee. And not try to beat it up, not trying to speed it up or anything like that. I just try to taste it and then adjust from there. But I pay attention to it because it's a good indicator how fast it's moving, depending on which filter you're using. I think the reason why it's a part of my whole psyche, or one of the things that I truly, really care about in coffee, is because it allows me to really pay attention to what's actually going on. And then from there, I adjust. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's the most important indicator to me. It used to be, it used to be something that was a big deal to me. And drawdown could be so many different things, either how fast it actually moves through the bed, or even to the point to where you run it all the way dry. These are little techniques that we can just manipulate in order to bring something else different about our coffee. For instance, I've noticed that if you let it run dry, the coffee becomes a little bit more bolder, becomes a little bit more richer. I do it from time to time, play around with different things. Sometimes I like to keep the bed with consistent amount of water between the pulses. Again, little techniques, different things that you can do in order to bring different things out of the coffee. It's like using a paintbrush. You bring out the tools whenever you want to, and when you do that, it's like, wow, that's cool. That's interesting. Let's keep going. Let's push past the comfort zones of the things that we're trying to do to see if we can bring a different element about the coffee. So that's why it's critical. That's why it's important. That's why it's a B tier to me. Is it a B tier or A tier? A tier. Yeah. It's important to me. Okay, B tier. I talked about it. I may have to do another video about it. Kettle temperatures. We're not going to worry about the whole kettle situation, about it lies, because it actually does lie. It's not as accurate as you think it is. But I guess what I'm getting at, and that's probably more so like a reason for pro gear, is that you can actually, because I noticed that this weekend I could actually calibrate it. And when you calibrate it, you can actually get a little bit more accurate. It's still off by 1 or 2 degrees, but it keeps that temperature no matter what, throughout the thing. Again, that's the story for another day. But the thing that's important about actual temperatures and kettles is that kettles are what they are, right? But kettles are not the most critical, most important thing about this whole thing. It's actually the temperature. It can be totally off, but as long as you are allowed, as long as you allow yourself in order to just taste the coffees at different temperatures, it'll give you a different appreciation of the coffee. Again, it's another paintbrush that you're using, different stroke that you're using. It gets to the point to where it's like, wow, okay, I see what temperature is doing. I would highly suggest, though, that you don't incrementally change the temperature. If you're really going to do the temperature thing, go extreme a little bit. Go 5 degrees, 10 degrees, compared to what you're actually used to. That's why it's critical in this whole dance. To me, that's what I think. So, that's why it's B tier. It's important. Temperature's critical. We're not talking about kettles. Kettles, a story for another day. But the biggest thing here is that once you get to the point of tasting your coffee and then changing one or two of the variables, you start to realize that temperature really does do something dramatic, something interesting, something cool to the coffee. Depending on the coffee, depending on the situation, like everything else does, right? So, the last thing, the grind, right? It's B tier for me because it's critical. I think for the most part, we have a grind size that we use. Again, a lot of grind size on the actual grinder are kind of BS. But as you keep using it, keep experiencing it, start to understand all the things that you're trying to do, you're going to really just stay at that particular grind size. And then once you get there, then that's when you start to manipulate. That's when you start to think about the paper filter, your pouring technique, and all that stuff. Sometimes if you don't grind fine enough, then that coffee's lacking. That coffee doesn't taste good, right? But there's other variables too that you can manipulate in order to bring up the extraction, the flavors, and all that stuff. That's why it's like a B tier. So once you really pick out the thing that you like in a particular grind, again, it depends on the coffee. But for the most part, once you get it, you have this range of just playing and putting this stroke there, then putting that stroke there, and then getting to the point to where it's like, wow, I got it. It makes sense. So once you get your grind size, depending on the grinder, for the most part, you're going to probably hover, change a couple things here and there. 3 or 4 clicks one way or the other way. And that's it. Those are my tops. 6, 7, 5. I don't know. What are yours? It may be these too. They may be in a different order. But your reasoning may be totally different. And I think that's where this is really cool. Because for the most part, I would think that most of our top choices in coffees are more so the same, but the reasonings are different. The reasons why we like to do things, why we don't like to do things, and all that good stuff, right? So, let me know what you think. What's the order of operation that you work with? What's most important to you? I didn't even say the coffee. Interesting. Coffee's important, but I didn't say the coffee. Talk to you later. Bye.